I really want to know, like, what did they tell the artist about this movie when they're like commissioning this? Because
It's
like,
cheeky.
yes, very much so, isn't it? I like it. Don't get me wrong, but again, it has very little to do with the movie itself in general. And and I get it. They were trying to copy Deep Star Six's cover, but that was just really really cool, and this wasn't as.
Isn't Deep Stars a little more like actual more of the suit rather than a suit gliding up on a balloon through the dark abyss of the ocean, carrying a sultry woman in her thong?
Song, and then there's no decompression with the eyes.
Like I know we're doing Deep Star 6 next, but I should probably take a look at that. Oh wait,
Now,
I got an image here.
my magical Karnak powers are telling me and hoping that when we get to Deep Star 6, when we finally get back to the first of these movies that started that whole summer of schlock, um, I'm hoping it's the good one.
Yeah, Deep
I'm
Star
really
6
crossing
has
my,
yeah.
but I remember it being bloodier. I remember it being a mixture of what Leviathan versus Deep Rising is.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And and I'm glad we watched Deep Rising last week because it gave a little bit more objectivity to this movie. Like there was more to appreciate about the movie, and there was a little bit less to appreciate at the same time. And God help me, I'm going to say some of what Deep Rising did was better than Leviathan. I know. Its pacing. Its pacing was much, much better than Leviathan's was.
And you call it Leviathan, not Leviathan.
Leviathan, yeah. Is it Leviathan?
Leviathan.
Leviathan.
Thin, like fit, like the model that's been posted on the poster.
Uh I won't put the butt picture back up. I'm sorry. But I was thinking it really hard. So, I mean,
Bunch
I
of
know
dirty-minded individuals over here. So welcome back to 0 Point Reviews.
two dirty old men talking about dirty old movies.
Sci-fi horror movies. Yeah.
Yes, and this one, I loved this movie so much. It's not Alien, it's not The Thing, it's Leviathan,
Yeah.
which is the love child of both of those movies. So, yeah.
I
Oops.
like both of those movies though. Alien
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot that they just fucking straight up ripped off.
Oh
But
God, yeah.
when you look at it, who all is involved with this picture? A lot of the people that made Alien, a lot of the people that were involved with the thing.
Well, you
So,
got Stan Winston on here doing some of the practical effects. I mean, you got like some great names behind the scenes working on this. So obviously, there's going to be some influences and homages, some downright Xeroxing of certain things from other movies. So it's definitely feeling a little rip-offish at times, but that's just the way it goes with a lot of the movies that we grew up with. They all borrowed something from something.
yes, yes, and you saw that a lot in our youth with the Swords and Sandals movies. This,
Oh dear God, yes.
yeah, like everything was pretty much Death Stalker, and it was all the same movie. But this, I found this is just going along with what you'd said, showing all the actors were having frustrations and stuff with having to wait for certain things. Stan's crew had the most wonderful time because they got to fucking scuba dive while working the creature in the water. And it's like they just had the best time working on this project. So it's like, this is not a great movie. It's not a bad movie by any means, but there was a lot of fun put into this picture. It just didn't always reflect in the picture.
I think you could argue to a point, you could tell they were having a fun time on this movie. And it's a lot in more of like how the cast was acting. But, you know, according to some of the documentaries on the wonderful Scream Factory Blu-ray release, it's so beautiful. You know you want it. You need to get it. But there's some great interviews on here, and in a couple of them, they do mention that there's constant fighting with the director at times. So that probably was not helping any matter whatsoever between probably the actors, the editors, you know, pretty much probably everybody. They were all probably getting their fill with this dude as a director.
There were egos. I mean, I'm guessing there were egos on this project because there are no bland actors in this movie. Like,
Right.
everyone was somebody back then or is still somebody today.
Daniel Stern, Hector Elizondo, Peter fucking Weller, for fuck's sake, Amanda Hayes, you know, all of them, you know, tremendous actors. I mean, not all of them were names on here, but when Hector Elizondo is saying, yeah, we were getting in fights with the director at times, and Daniel Stern was really getting his buttons pushed by this dude, I mean, it makes you think, oh, what's the problem with the director that Daniel Stern is having an issue with you? That says a lot because you don't hear Daniel Stern getting into arguments with directors on anything.
Daniel Stern, my impression of him is somebody that knows what he's talking about. And that's the type of person that you want to accept their information. Take it as a fucking learning experience.
Yeah.
Like, my God, how cool would that be? Now, I understand Daniel Stern didn't have his oeuvre at that point yet, but he was still doing okay for himself. And
he was doing pretty good. And he was a
yeah,
known stage actor. He didn't need this shit.
yeah. I mean, this was just before Home Alone, but still after City Slickers. Like, he was getting to be a household name at this point, I think.
Yeah.
So, and he was good in this. He was really fun. I like Daniel Stern. Like,
six pack.
I got to picture him somewhere. And he plays that dirty character really well. Like,
he's like, that's quite a pair. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I'm just talking about like the captain. And she's like, I thought you were talking about my boobs.
Boobs. Yeah, this movie, like, they tried being gratuitous on many levels, and they were. And then they were very conservative on other levels. And you're just kind of like, but there was nip nips over there a second ago. What happened?
Like, well, and they had like centerfolds with nudity on them, so you saw boob shots off of that. You could say the same thing about it was in Die Hard as well, the very first Die Hard, which is another probably homage at this point. And it's like, you just look at the scene with Daniel Stern and her, and it's like, wait, that feels like we just saw that in Aliens.
Yes. And that happened last week too. It's like,
yep,
you want to cross out the fucking the title of the movie and put not aliens. We promise it's not aliens.
Well, they all wanted to borrow something from something knowledgeable and familiar for people, so I totally get that. It's just when you start like basically doing like the Xerox thing where it's more than an homage, you're clearly ripping something off. That's when I feel like you could have been a little more creative with that. You know, you could have done something similar and been different at the same time. And this, things like this, it's not that different. So it's like, well, you couldn't wait for The Abyss to come out to rip off from that. So,
well, see, that's the problem. The Abyss did great because it had the fucking budget of a lifetime. Like, nobody'd seen what Jim Cameron was about to show them at that point. Everybody has seen a creature feature, and this was a good creature feature. Like, on a level of comparison, this felt a lot more like a creature feature, a monster movie than Deep Rising did.
I'll agree with that, yeah.
And a lot of that is due to Stan Winston. All of that is due to Stan Winston and his team.
Also known as the almighty Stan Winston.
He's such a sweetheart. I will never, ever, like, forget meeting that guy. It's like you shake his hand and you get goosebumps and stuff. He's just so nice.
Great guy, great creative, outstanding work. Just saying.
Yeah, like he is to special effects what Jim Henson was to puppetry. Like
Yeah.
he wanted to make sure like everybody could do something amazing if they wanted to. It wasn't there were never egos and shit like that. He was just a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Right. And say what you want about some of the other makeup effects people in the industry. They all point to Stan Winston and say, that guy is good too. Like Nicotero will say it, Savini will say it. They'll all point to him and be like, you like talking about us, but don't forget about this guy.
Well, and that's the thing is Stan would always talk about them, like never himself. It was always, well,
Yeah.
know.
That's probably why he was a little too humble, and the others were a little bit more like, yeah, we're good, but don't forget about this guy too.
Savini's a rock star. Like he's
Oh
dope
yeah,
as shit.
Yeah. When we get to From Dusk Till Dawn, we'll have a fun time talking about Savini.
Sex machine.
Boing! Anybody
That was
who's
one
seen
of
that
the
movie knows exactly what we're talking about.
Sex Machine was one of the greatest characters ever. Like he's just funny as shit. Didn't
Oh,
have
this
no
crotch
hardly any
pistol.
lines.
Yeah.
You didn't have to say shit. But before we 0 point ourselves completely on this one, going back to what you were saying, with like straight up ripping off things, this reminds me a lot of where they're going, where the on in Alien, where they're on LV 426 and they're going into the shipwreck. It very much reminded me of that at this point.
See,
And
this is an homage. This I don't feel is too much of a straight rip.
fair enough, fair enough. And I think the problem was is I wasn't expecting an homage, like an hour and a half long homage.
True.
Again, this is not a bad movie. It just wasn't as good as I remember it being. Um, I don't know. Like Peter Weller, I am not as impressed with him in my adulthood as I was with him in my youth. And I think that's looking back at the way I've seen him, the way I've heard people talk about him, which is not fair to him, but things that I've seen in the press. He just, I don't know. I don't know if it was the character that they didn't really write all that great for him with Beck, but he just, I couldn't see him as the leading man. But I will say this about that: he was more the leading man than Treat Williams was. I will definitely give him that.
Yeah, I think more like the character didn't really fit for how Peter Weller would have really delivered in the role. So I think it comes down to a little bit of the writing and it not being the best fit for him. Because it definitely felt it for like you're watching this and you're kind of wondering, I don't know about this one. Like I've seen Buckaroo Banzai, I've seen RoboCop, all the way to Screamers. I've been watching this guy for years. I've seen him in the TV show Longmire. He was fantastic there too. So I've been following this for him for years, and I've always liked this movie, but it also feels like an awkward placement for him in his talents. Like they didn't really use his talents until like the latter half of the movie. The first half, him fumbling over things. It's like, I don't think you're really playing to his strengths at this time. You're trying to show that he's not this superhero or the main star here. Like you want to give us some sort of idea that maybe he won't live to the end. But then in the end, we get there and spoiler alert, he's alive and he decks the female boss, and it's like that doesn't age well. And
the fuck it doesn't.
You could go ahead and get right to it. I just wanted to say, like, I don't think this was the best fit for Peter Weller. I think he might have been a better choice for like the Abyss. And that's not to say anything bad about Ed and what he did, but I think Peter could have done even better in the Abyss.
I would have liked to see him just be part of that cast with Ed Harris, because like
right,
they were both great.
I love Ed Harris. I'm not saying it should have happened, just saying that might have been a better role for Peter Weller.
Perhaps, yeah. Because again, this, if you're looking at this objectively, like if you've never seen him in another film before, if you've never seen Meg Foster in another film before, this is probably problematic to see. But if you think about it in the sense that fucking RoboCop just punched Evil Lynn, who's working for Weyland-Yutani, it's fine. It's fine. Like,
As long as she goes flying off the edge of the pier about another mile down.
I was just gonna say, like, the worst that's gonna happen is you punch her off the pier. She flies, it's fine.
But she's got to get some distance or it doesn't count in the record books. Just saying.
But that punch was so fantastic. And I forgot she was in this. So it's like we see Meg Foster and I go fucking nuts. I'm like, hooray, it's Evil Lynn.
And she ends up getting her head punched in by Peter Weller.
Yeah, like
I mean, it fit with what was going on, but I think it might have been better if Amanda had been the one to deck her.
Yes, it would have.
Because she was the one who had like this career she was working towards with like being an astronaut, and she had feelings for Bex and just everything that they all got put through. I don't know. She looked like she was ripe to take somebody the fuck out and show a little bit of like I don't know, some fortitude at the end instead of just trying to escape with everybody.
Yeah. And shit, in the third act, they basically got her performing American Ninja Warrior and shit. Like,
yeah, basically,
her fucking biceps must have been fucking huge by the end of filming this shit. And I say that with great respect. Like, Amanda Pays is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I will just kind of say it. She was kind of one of my first crushes as a kid.
Yeah, she was like, one of my favorite of all the people in this movie. She's probably my favorite character, to be honest with you, next to Ernie Hudson's character.
Yes, and Ernie Hudson does something to where his character isn't like, please forgive me for saying this, the token black guy, the angry black guy, which is certainly what they were trying to fucking make him. He's got this moment where he's gotten into a fight with De Jesus or Hazy, whatever they want to call him. And he makes up for it by like basically apologizes for being a dick by bringing him a puzzle that he likes. And it was just like a really sweet and sincere thing.
An apology without an apology.
Yeah, like it was really neat. Like that was very well done, very good for the character. And it made you very concerned when his character is inevitably in danger.
Right.
So, which one of the things I will say again, these characters were not stupid. They were not necessary. They weren't necessarily cliches. I mean, they were, yes, but
to a point, they're a little,
yeah. But it was like they knew that there was a problem on the ship, and they instantly weaponed up. Like there was no, we need to find out what's happening here. They just instantly fucking armed themselves and fortified. So I mean, I enjoyed that part, but and I couldn't get a good picture of it. But RoboCop with this flamethrower, this like stunted looking flamethrower, was so ridiculous to me. And it's like, could you guys have found a better weapon for him? Like, again, they try making him so fumbly at the beginning that you give him this big bulky weapon. It just didn't really fit.
Yeah. That's just probably how they were like, how can we do this without making them, I don't know. It got goofy and cheesy with that stuff.
Yes. And I get it. It's the 80s. Everything's got to be fucking glam. And
and somewhat futuristic and a little beat up and gritty and glam. It's like, okay, you could just pick one and stick to it.
Do you want to be gritty or glam? Which again, they actually did somewhat okay with both. They had world-class veteran actors, but then they would have them do really silly shit. Where's my favorite example of it? Oh, okay. Here's Hector and Colonel Troutman playing, I'm gonna get you with the claw.
It's the claw. Arr, from Liar Liar.
Exactly. Was this the best you guys could do at the moment? Like, this was not scary. This wasn't even cool.
Well, until you saw the teeth coming out of the hand anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even then.
Because you don't know what to expect because everybody was changing a little bit differently.
Yes. And that part was fun. That was, like you said, that was an homage to The Thing. That was, and they even had an homage to The Blob, where it shows Stern's body under the blanket, and you could see the movement under the blanket, where it's supposed to be Stern, but you know it's not.
That was super funny because of that.
Yeah.
That played right into Jones just talking to him, being like, "Oh, hey, I know you're sick and you're not feeling best. I'll let you get some rest, buddy. All right, I'll be right back, or I'll be back later." And that was super fucking funny. And then Jones's like quote unquote girlfriend comes strolling in while she's sick, and she's like, "I'm not feeling the best. I'm losing my hair, and then all of a sudden she sees what he's turning into, and she starts really flipping out.
He was the only one that had the sense to fucking kill herself early. She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm out.
But to her unfortunate incident, she ended up becoming one with him anyway.
Yeah.
It was a foregone conclusion. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Underwater STIs.
Let the shunting begin. Man, we have this thing with movies where some of these creatures like to combine into one, and it just keeps coming. Like we got Leviathan, we had Slither. It just keeps on going.
Yeah, and it always starts with like some slug getting like injected into you or stabbed into you. I forgot I grabbed this one. This one was so wet and moist and disgusting. It was dope.
Somebody had a field day getting that one ready.
Yeah, it's like, can you just imagine like just the people getting ready off, or like stagehands like with spray bottles getting it all fucking nasty and moist.
The thing to do these days is like take or what I would do, like low budget style. I just take a little spray bottle, fill it with like canola oil, and just start spraying. Just keep the heat source away, and everything will be just dandy and nice and slimy.
They did a good job with this. I mean, again, it's Stan Winston, so I mean, nothing that is going to get put out is going to look bad. It's going to look like the most amazing thing ever.
Right. And between that and you also had the phenomenal score of Jerry Goldsmith yet again. This dude's like doing every freaking movie we've been watching lately, it feels like. And the soundtrack and scoring are just awesome for this movie. And it ties in to make a nice atmosphere, at least.
Yes. And just like last week, it was the type of movie where it's like it kept the pacing going forward. Without that music, this probably would have felt really drawl and slow.
It could have, yeah.
Yeah, it's the music kind of helped. It was hard to find yourself being like in a moment of suspense. I was never like chilled while they're being hunted, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it did lack a little bit of tension, but it made up for it with everything else.
It made up for it with seeing the monster, I think.
Right. There was more visuals with this than there was with like Deep Rising up until the last bit.
Yeah, but see, and again, I will say this about that again. This thing is more beautiful to me than the giant flute worm or kraken thing. Just because of the fact that you could touch it, like you could reach out and touch this fucking thing. And like there are shots of it grabbing cast members and picking it up in the air, and that was all really happening within reason. But I love shit like this. I loved this kind of artwork, this kind of makeup, this kind of puppetry, animatronics,
CGI.
Yeah, and so when we see Deep Rising 10 years later or 9 years later, this is what I was expecting. Deep Star 6 is what I was expecting. not the family friendly action flick that we got. And so now looking back, watching this shortly thereafter, just after, I'm kind of like, well, God, this isn't really that much better than this movie. It's just bad for a whole other reason. And that's
It's better
because of its,
looking.
it is much better looking. It's got better actors. It's got much better written dialogue, much better written character development or lack of character development for characters that you don't need. Um, within the exception of like the doctor's crazy fucking issue at the beginning, like this movie worked well going forward. It just took forever to get there. That's all.
Yeah, I contribute that to be part of the problem with the writing is they couldn't quite figure out the best way to kick this one off. But once it got rolling in the middle of the second act, from that point to the very end, it felt like the movie was really moving along at that point. Like it finally got its feet under itself. I don't know. Maybe there was a little bit of behind the scenes, like, hey, let's change this around. Let's make this character a little more like that. Let's have a few reshoots, this, that, or the other, whatever it was. The first act feels like it's taking a while to get moving. But once it gets moving, I don't know. It feels like once they find the Russian ship and we got that part rolling along, that the movie just goes from that point to the very end without missing a beat. But that first like 25 minutes is just like, I know you're introducing the characters, you're setting everything up, but you could have done this in 10 to 15 minutes and gotten the same effect out of it.
Well, see, like this here, where Robo's telling off the doctor, they just made out the fact, and they kind of drawn it out too far, that Beck is a geologist, not a miner. He's a bookworm scholar, for lack of a better term, and now being put in charge of this mining facility. And so it's like they have very little respect for him, and he's trying to get this place running like a clock. And this doctor, who's like the veteran on the crew, doesn't show up for anything, like is drinking or something like that when he's supposed
Dude,
to be
he's
doing things.
golfing. He's on the back nine at this time. Oh my God.
And it's Colonel Troutman from fucking First Blood and Rambo. So it's like, again, someone
I
that's an
know.
amazing actor. And they give him this weird character development at the beginning that
Yeah, this
just
subplot is just
that goes away by the middle of the film. And
yeah, they
he's
completely
the
throw it out the fucking window. It's like, oh,
yeah.
he isn't this lazy dude. No, he's invested in everything. It's just, well, then what the hell was the whole thing at the beginning? He's been like that for like nearly 3 months or 6 months, whatever it was. And now all of a sudden he's giving a shit about everybody. What happened in the last 6 months?
Yeah, like was he just like doing peyote down there, like thinking that he's golfing or what have you? Because there's really not a whole lot else of shit to do.
Maybe he was stealing all the vodka and replacing it with water. And it
The
was
mo-
really him the entire time. Now there's a plot twist for you.
that was fucked up. That son of a bitch.
Because that's what I would do.
Yeah, right. And it worked out.
Yeah, the movie is, we might be, we might be tearing it apart a little bit, but we did have fun with this one.
Yeah, I mean, we tear it apart because we're in our mid 40s. We saw this when we were 9, 12 years old and really liked it back then for the time. So we do have to give it that credit. This was entertaining to us for that time period.
Yeah, this is part of the holy trinity of undersea movies for us back then.
Yeah, and this is one of the better flicks out of those. So
I would
sorry.
take this over a couple of the other ones.
Yes, Deep Rising being one of them, but again, that's 10 years later in a different type of flick. This is much better than Lords of the Deep, obviously, if you've seen season
Or The
12.
Rift or The
I
Abyss to some people.
Yes, I like this better than The Abyss.
Yeah. Even though if Abyss made it to Blu-ray or 4K, I would probably buy it.
They've never put that on Blu-ray.
No, the last format it was on DVD.
That seems like a missed opportunity.
That's a Jimmy Cameron decision, along with True Lies.
Yes, he can't be bothered to make that in digital as he'd prefer it to be until he's done with Avatar. Basically, trying to get out of debt for the first two movies.
Oh, you mean another water-based film? Interesting. Interesting. He likes Titanic. He likes Raising the Titanic. He did The Abyss. He did Avatar. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a water theme here. Maybe he should remake Waterworld.
Good
You're
God
welcome.
Almighty.
I'm kidding. It's hard to say what's been going on for years, but people have been begging for those movies. But there's a few other movies that his production studio is responsible for, and they should put those out as well, including Strange Days.
Yeah. I just because like nothing he does is a bomb. Like even when it's bad, it fucking goes over with certain crowds.
Oh yeah, like he doesn't swing and miss. He gets a hit every time. It's just where does it land for particular fans of his or not fans of his?
Yeah, and them beating out Endgame for being the most profitable movie or whatever it was. It's like, is it though? Is it? Because you kind of pulled a Gone with the Wind and put it back out in the theaters 3 times to do that. So keep trying, Jimmy. The Avatar was not all that in a bag of chips. And I know we're zero pointing, but it really is just Titanic mixed with Pocahontas. That's all
It
that
circles
is.
back around. It's all a water themed movie again, too. But at least with Leviathan, they didn't shoot it underwater. They actually shot this on a soundstage and made things float in the air and just made it look like it was underwater, which I thought was a cool special effect.
Oh, sure, sure. That's the way that they used to fucking do it.
Yep.
Uh Phantom Planet was like that, I think. Um, where is it?
It's called working within your budget. You don't have to spend $3 trillion to make it look like you're underwater.
Oh, sure. And Cameron, you would have figured would have learned that from fucking Corman. But
Well, he got fired from Piranha too, so
oh,
he
that's
didn't
right,
really
he
learn
did.
much from that.
Where is that shot that we had? Because we're getting towards the end, and let's see what had happened towards the end. Oh, yes, here we are. Peter Weller's fantastic line, because it is the 80s still. Say, motherfucker. This
I
did
don't
not
know.
land with me.
Yeah, no. He had a better line in RoboCop 2. You have the right to remain silent. He's dead, Murphy.
Yeah, like that. And that was good timing. This was say, motherfucker, and somehow jumps. He's swimming in the water in the ocean, like there's nothing
and
under his
and
feet.
you don't jump like that.
No, like he jumps and throws this little like pipe bomb supposed to be thing.
No, he could have just yelled, "You're dead, motherfucker," and just thrown it, not just say, motherfucker.
Fuck you works just fine.
Or
Like,
you're dead. You don't even have to drop an M fucker bomb. You could just say, "You're dead."
but this thing, like, as he's looking at it, was so terrifying and gruesome
That was pretty wicked.
and still cheesy at the same time. You're like, fuck. Like, because I could still make fun of this. Like, seriously, I look at this and for whatever reason, I hear like the teacher from the wall, stand still, Danny, because it looks like he's pointing and shit.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. Has Riff Tracks ever done this movie?
No, no.
Michael, just saying.
They ought to, yes. This would be a good one for them to do. I don't think that they'd be able to get the well, that may not matter to them
What,
because
the
they can do
getting
it
the
just the
rights?
jokes. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't
It was
always apply to them
MGM,
anymore.
which is
Uh
Amazon, so they might be able to get something worked out.
yeah, because they do have deals with Amazon. They're streaming through them all the time. But
Something could probably be worked out.
the detail that they had on this thing, it kept changing, and I really liked it. Like they'd get up close on it, and it showed. It had an angry face, and it would show the faces of the people, the crewmen that had already been killed and assimilated into this thing. It was just really dope looking. They could have had more like the third act and a little less of the drawn out play, like with the doctor and whatnot. Like, who cares what his backswing is? I don't like. It slowed it down for me.
Yeah.
And if this movie would have been, say, maybe 20 minutes shorter, 15 minutes shorter, it probably would have been okay.
That's my opinion of the movie. It could have been tightened up a bit. And that's usually my opinion of most movies is, yeah, this was about 15 minutes too long or 20 minutes too long. Like my wife and I just finished watching Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. My opinion is that movie was about 25 minutes too long. Well, honestly, there was things they could have taken out that would have gotten rid of a lot of the slowness during parts of it. So, and I'm not a kind of guy who hates like long run times or anything like that. So it's not like that. It's just I look at this with the critical eye of like, could the pacing be better if the story was tightened up? If it's not the story, then why does this feel like it's dragging out too long? Did you choose the wrong score? Did you linger on a shot for too long? Are you letting an awkward pause happen when you shouldn't be? Like, or are you examining the world entirely and you shouldn't? Like, now that is a picture worth exploring. Kevin, take it away.
So they don't focus on things that they should. There was a lot of assets that they had in this movie that,
A couple.
yes, that they could have focused on, kept going on, really expounded upon, and they didn't. They just kind of fell short with it. They padded it over. They kept things very dry, and it wasn't as good as it could be. It was
No, it got
good.
very nippy up in there.
Yeah, because it's underwater and all that. But at the end, it's like you wanted to see a little bit more. You wanted to see more. It left you wanting, and I guess that's what the good ones do. I don't know.
Sometimes you just gotta perk it up.
I'm moving. Sorry.
You are not sorry.
I'm not like, I completely forgot that she was in this movie. Didn't realize that she was like pretty much naked in this movie. I'm like, like, this movie could suck for the next 90 minutes. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm very easy to please. But no, it's this movie. If you like monster movies, not necessarily like sea monster movies or whatever, this is a cool movie. It's worth a watch. I don't know that it's worth going out and spending a ton of money on, but it's worth a watch. It's a good movie. It's got a great cast, wonderful looking monster, and for those who do, it's a little riff worthy.
Yeah. The cast is what ultimately works for me on this. Granted, they don't all have the best chemistry, but they do work well off of each other. I loved Ernie Hudson and Hector Elizondo bouncing off of each other. They had a great dynamic. They even replicated a scene out of Ghostbusters in here. So it totally felt like he was channeling his inner Winston Zedmore at one point, which I totally loved. And he had some great lines, and I wrote down, he nearly made it to the fucking end. He nearly fucking made it, and they fucking killed him. He would have been okay to deck out the boss, you know? Just saying. That would have been super
also
funny.
been cool.
Because my favorite line out of this movie is basically when they're all three of them are talking to the boss. And he's like, I understand the hell you've gone through. Gone? Bitch, we still here. And it's just like, that just had me dying, because Ernie Hudson is an amazing actor. He's got great comedic timing, and he can bring intensity and drama, even make it an unintentional humorous thing. And he brought like this next level of charm to the movie and dynamic to the cast. So Love the cast. Story is fun. Yeah, it could have been tightened up, take a subplot out here and there, but overall, it's a fun movie. And I couldn't recommend it more. However, just keep an eye out for Blu-rays from Scream Factory. They are a bit overpriced. We had Kevin get the Spanish version of it, which will play on just about any Blu-ray player. So don't feel bad if you get the Spanish one. But the picture quality is great. There's some great extras on these, and it's a fun time. And it's also available to rent on most of the streamers. You might have to pay your $2 to $3, $4, whatever it is on whichever service you use, but it's out there. So I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Again, there's plenty to enjoy about this movie and check out. But the Spanish version, I believe it truly is like this, not from Mexico, but from Spain, the España version. So I mean, if you speak a little bit of Spanish or Latin, that helps out a little bit. Otherwise, you get the subtitles in English and the language itself is in English, so it's really not different except for the box.
Yeah, it's the same movie, and it plays just for just about everybody. So definitely worth it as a pickup. Or you might want to just sit tight and maybe there'll be a 4K upgrade, because Scream Factory seems to be on a kick lately where everything's getting a 4K upgrade that they still have rights to.
Slapshot got one. I was like, oh, I need that.
I would not mind adding that to our rotation in the near future as well. I'm a big Slapshot fan.
Yeah, shit. I was trying to explain Slapshot to my wife, and she's kind of like, that's not remotely funny. I'm like, but the guy's wife was a lesbian.
Kevin. Only my co-host, everybody. Only my co-host.
I got yelled at.
Kevin, you got anything more for us, or do you want to get yelled at again?
I'm probably going to get yelled at again. I'm sorry. I don't think I have anything else. If I do, it's probably just gimmicky and funny.
Yeah.
Oh, when I was looking up the pictures for the movie, this one came across several times, and I'm like, Bob Morton, what the fuck is he doing in this picture? I'm like, he's not supposed to be here until next week.
Wrong movie.
Yeah.
Well, spoiler alert, next week we are doing Deep Star 6, and it's going to be a fun one.
Yes, that movie, if I remember correctly, and so far I haven't yet, is a lot more violent than what we've been watching so far.
That one's a personal favorite. I actually bought the Japanese Blu-ray release of that years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then I got it on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber a year or two ago.
See, now I should have gotten the Blu-ray because clearly that's just the better way to go, but I can make a fuck ton of pictures with the DVD that I can't with Blu-rays. So
Ain't nothing wrong with that either. That movie is a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get in. I haven't watched it in a while, so
yeah, it will.
Yeah.
And there's that suit that you're talking about where it's just the ripped
that's
apart
fucking
suit
cool in
floating
my
up.
opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and they tried using similar suits in this movie, but it didn't this suit looked partially like a monster. The other ones didn't. Where was it? Like, it had Ernie Hudson in it.
God damn, I love that when the shark showed up for all of like 20 seconds.
Yeah, the shark shows up. It's like, for one thing, you're like, for fuck's sake. And for the other thing, is you just kind of like, I was waiting for the Leviathan, or excuse me, the creature. There were no actual Leviathan in this movie. This was just some weird
to
thing.
say the least.
Yeah, like a Leviathan is a ginormous fucking sea creature, which I didn't realize was not in this movie. But I really wanted to see the creature just like grab the shark and fucking munch it in half and throw it. Like that would have been interesting.
That would have been dope.
Yeah, but this is just kind of like, oh goodness, there's sharks. What are we gonna do? It's like same thing you've been doing for the last fucking 90 minutes. Run, bitch, run.
Swim!
Swim.
Swim, damn it. And then they're gone in the next shot, probably just waiting until we cover Jaws in 2 weeks. It did its little run in on this match. It was wrong movie, yo. Wrong movie.
There's a bonfire going on up the coast. We're gonna go check out and see how many hippies are up there swimming.
Yep, this does not mean we're gonna do Deep Blue Sea, so don't be thinking too highly of that one.
No. I want to say I saw that once with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, this movie's so much fun," and I'm like, "Is it?" It's got Sam Jackson, and it got us a great joke on fucking Chappelle's show, but that's all we got. Like, I don't like CG sharks. It's not my thing. Unless we're like watching Five-Headed Shark Attack. No.
Yeah.
Which is actually not that horrible of a movie. 5 and 6-headed Shark Attack's pretty good for whatever reason. I think Danny Trejo's in them both. He dies in both of them, but I think he's in both.
I don't think I've seen any of those, and I sure as hell haven't seen Sharknado beyond the first one.
The first two are okay. The second one was the cash grab. It was fun for the cameos. You really want Tara Reid to be gone, but you want Tara Reid to be gone by the time you see the first movie too. Like she's just not charismatic with Ian Ziering.
Yeah, no.
And he was pretty much charismatic with everybody else in the movie. It's like it's not a good movie, but he works well with people. He's not.
That's the example
actor.
of when you don't have chemistry with somebody, how it really reflects on screen.
Yeah, and she may not have been. It just may be like permanent damage to her, but she looks like she may have been imbibing a couple times on set.
She's been around the block a few times.
Grant can't watch unless he pays 100 though, or
That's
1,000. No, I never particularly cared about her, but Ian Ziering is worth watching in that. Will Wheaton dying is worth watching for it. Like everyone's got a pretty damn gruesome death, or you're just kind of like, yeah, fuck them. Goodbye, Kelly Osbourne.
Bye, Kelly.
Shut up, Wesley. We should never say that to him. That's a horrible thing to say. And never say 2.5 stars to Leonard Maltin. We need to just do a show of like things never to say to certain celebrities.
I'll just say -5 stars.
-5 stars.
Like most Asylum movies.
Wait, what? What?
Like most Asylum movies.
Oh, I was gonna say 5 stars. I'm like, what Asylum movie is 5 stars? Not even Sharknado.
None of them. They don't even rank on the positive side.
No, and I always feel bad for shitting on them because like they follow me. And I feel bad because it's like that's a supporter, I guess, because I don't feel like I'm supporting them, but it's like I really can't in good conscience. Like Jonah pretty much hit the nail on the head where he's like, all they do is make movies to trick your grandmother into buying you a stupid, shitty movie that's not the Avengers.
Pacific, or no, what was it? Atlantic Rim being
Atlantic Rim.
Where they probably think it's the sequel to Pacific Rim, and it's really not.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of a rim job movie, so.
And they're both anyway, they're both shitty movies, but one's just a lot shittier than the other. But it has Graham Greene in it, so you can't go wrong with that.
That is true.
He brings sincerity to the movie.
Somebody's got to.
Oh god, that movie's so fucking horrible. Like out of that entire season, that is the one movie where I'm just kind of like, I don't feel the necessity to watch it. Like, it's
Yep.
not that good
No.
because it's intentionally bad. So it's like it's that self-awareness where I'm kind of like, they're going kind of breaking their own rule on that one there. So that's one I don't care for. But again, I don't like asylum movies in general.
Right, neither do I. And thank you everybody for tuning in to 0 Point Reviews with Kevin and Jeff. We just want to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Chad Peterman, Skeeter Slater. Thank you for joining us, Screamers. We'll see you next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.